first of all like to second Sean's comments here, because I just was diagnosed with cancer last year, and I've been treated by the NHS. And although I lost my voice and all my hair and everything else, I'm fit and well again. And in fact, I've been working in Siberia. I came back last weekend. So they've done a wonderful job. And I've been to something like 65 countries. I've been traveling for the last 25 years to, on average, 2 countries a month in the oil industry. And I've seen lots of health services all around the world, and in particular America. We have the best health service in the world, and we should fight very hard not to lose it. But underlying this and the oil industry as well is the fact that a lot of our fights are made very, very difficult by privatization, because as soon as you privatize, it becomes commercial in confidence. Now, I fought the incinerator here, the big municipal waste incinerator back in the 80s, spent 4 years fighting that, and it was privatization that stopped us getting all the information. And once you can't get the information, it disappears. And that's the process that's happening at the moment. So coming back to the oil industry and fracking in particular, I give talks against fracking. I'm in the oil industry. I've been giving talks inside the industry because we're concerned about it inside the industry for something like 10 or 15 years. I'm a member of the Post-Carbon Institute in America, who are very concerned about fracking. And I've decided not to do a fracking talk because I'd be preaching to the converted here. We're all against it. But instead to point out the difficulties that we're actually facing. Because the biggest problem we face is we do not have any democracy. When you look at a democracy, we should be informed of what's going on and then be allowed to make a decision. We should be able to make a decision and vote on it. But in fact, when you look at most of the major issues that are going ahead now, we don't get a vote at all. All we do is vote, unfortunately, along party political lines for an individual, and after that, we're not consulted at all. Anything that does involve the electorate is just dismissed. I'll give you a good example. 16 of us objected to an overdevelopment locally. And when the officers of the council wrote their report for our wonderful elected representatives, everything for the development is very neatly paragraphed, put in their proper boxes. When you look at what the electorate wrote in, it was turned into 3 pages long of solid text, no spaces. It was absolutely jumbled up. You can't make out anything at all. So in fact, they have worked out ways of dismissing anything that we do. I attended a meeting in Swanage recently to see how they were dealing with the housing issue, which was once again not being put to us. And I went to the Molan in Swanage. And we were all asked, on the panel as well as sitting in the audience, we were all asked what groups we represented. And when they got round, I was about the second to last. And I said, I'm a member of the electorate. I might just as well have said I represented an organization in the Middle East that beheads people. The hostility was unbelievable. But in fact, I've been dealing with this sort of issue for quite a long time. And trying to relocalize democracy, to actually get democracy going, is one of the most important things that we could possibly do. Because we feel disenfranchised because we are disenfranchised. We're not given any decisions to make. We're not even informed of the issues. Now, the talks that I give on fracking don't just cover fracking, because it's no good just opposing a problem. You've got to propose a solution. And there are some very, very good ones. How many in the audience know that Scotland is going to be energy dependent of fossil fuels by 2020? Because in fact, they have one of the largest underwater turbine project. It is the largest underwater turbine project in the world. It's not even getting in the press. It's not getting down here. Now, I've heard the speech in the common market that Salmon made on this, and I've been keeping tabs with this for a very long time. We've also got Germany, which has got a wonderful scheme going. They've got community-based energy schemes, 170 of them, and they're growing very, very fast. 47% of the energy generation in Germany is community-owned. Now that's got huge benefits. Just to start with, it keeps the sticky fingers of the financiers out, because you own your own generating system. The German rule makes sure that all generating systems cover winter heating as well. So there are no profiteers in. Once they've paid back their investment in the scheme, because of course they have to pay for their own schemes, once they've paid it back, they will get cheaper electricity. And Germany is actually buying back its grids. What's been happening is that these wonderful politicians of ours have actually been selling off the assets of our country. So when you see them at the cenotaph, laying wreaths for the wonderful soldiers who lost their lives in the war to keep our freedom, they are the same people that have been selling it off. And one day we're going to have to buy it back like Germany has. Now Germany has bought back a large number of its grids, the entire city of Hamburg for instance, and we've got to start doing the same thing. We've got to reverse this trend of privatizing, which hides what's going on, and then selling it to multinationals. Because when we sell it offshore, our vote no longer counts. It's a British asset that we can no longer have any vote for. And that's why we are unable to affect the large energy companies who are charging us a great deal of money. In fact, now that oil is declining, that is a rising commodity, and they're actually making more profits from the fact that it's getting in short supply than they would do if it was in plentiful supply, because their ratio for the money that's being taken remains the same. So every time the price goes up, so does their profit. So we really have to get away from privatizing. We've got to try and get the election to be the electorate to be much more positively involved in everything. Now, one of the things that has worried me in particular, looking at the size of Greenpeace. Now, Greenpeace has been around for a great many years, and it's not really having the effect that it should be having for its size. And the one reason that underlies it all is that the government's very good at fragmenting things, divide and rule. And there are lots of organizations, this one here is one, and we're all operating as separate. The one thing we should be pointing out in every single one of our campaigns is that we are the electorate. That's more important than being a citizen, the electorate, because we are supposed to be making the decisions and electing and voting for these things. We're not being invited to vote on anything. When it comes to fracking, we're not even part of the debate. You haven't heard about Scotland's scheme, you haven't heard about the German scheme, and there are lots of others. I put 3 into my talks, just to give you an idea, but there are a lot more than that. And we should be actually hearing all this information and making up our mind, being given the choice and voting on it. But in fact, in April 2013, the government issued the licenses without any of us having a say in it whatsoever, without any of us being given any information. Now, people like myself from inside the oil industry are acting for nothing, and there are more than just myself. We're acting for nothing to try and get the information out into the public. But more important still is that we need to get our democracy working so that we can have a vote on it. We really need, the best way to do that is to try and localize democracy. Once we start making decisions at parish level and all getting involved in it, stop voting for politicians who represent their party interests in London, but start representing people from the local areas. And yes, be NIMBYs. Once we start being NIMBYs properly, we'll get our own areas sorted out and be in a much better position to start looking at the next layer up and the next layer up and the next layer up and choosing the right people to put into them. But right at the moment, the government has been very, very clever. It's remarkably well organized. There's very little that you can influence, and that influence is draining away very quickly. every privatization that goes multinational, like the post office, like the energy companies, like the NHS, if that goes multinational and is doing it bit by bit, every time your vote then has no longer an effect on it, because multinationals are not elected. So we really need to get localized democracy going first, because that's where it's going to start. You can't start at the top. So stop voting for party politics, start voting for local issues, get that right, find the right people, and we need lots and lots and lots of them. Find the right people and get democracy going first, and get it going healthily, and then start working our way upwards. Now that's going to be too slow for issues like fracking, so we're going to have to do what we can in the meantime. But democracy has got to